If you buy a new computer, there is like a very clear expectation of precision.
Oh, absolutely. You just expect it to work.
Right. You read the manual, you press a specific sequence of buttons, and the machine just executes the exact code it was programmed to run. It's simple.
Very simple.
But then you bring a dog into your home and you give a command you've practiced like 100 times, and instead of executing the code, the dog just stares at you.
Yeah. Or they let out a massive yawn and just walk in the completely opposite direction.
Exactly. And suddenly that user manual is completely useless because you're realizing pretty quickly
that you aren't programming a machine. You are, attempting to negotiate a relationship with a completely different species.
Yeah.
I mean, a dog is a dynamic, highly sensitive, living ecosystem.
And for decades, let's be real, the mainstream advice on how to handle that ecosystem was just incredibly combative.
It was exhausting.
Totally. If your dog didn't listen, you were told to just force them onto their back and show them who is the alpha.
Right. Which we now know is completely backward.
Right. So for you listening, today's deep dive is going to completely tear that old philosophy apart. We are synthesizing a ton of fascinating sources today.
Yeah, we've got some great material to get into.
We really do. We're pulling from the groundbreaking veterinary work of Dr. Sophia Yin, some really complex behavioral studies from Frontiers in Veterinary Science, and practical frameworks from SOM.G and the Think Like a Dog podcast.
It's a really comprehensive look at what actually works.
Exactly. Our mission today is to decode the fascinating world of dog behavior. We're looking at the biological shift from traditional dominance to leadership without force.
Which is huge.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And we'll also get into how your dog's natural pack position dictates their anxiety. This is my favorite part. The subtle secret body language they use to warn us before they explode.
Yeah, those calming signals. But before we even get to that, the shift away from the alpha mentality is arguably the most important evolution in canine psychology in the last 50 years.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I've always found it wild how pervasive the alpha concept still is.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Right. When people talk about traditional dominance training, the cornerstone is usually the alpha role. It's this pervasive advice that if a dog steps out of line...
If they growl over a bone or something.
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to physically flip them onto their back, pin them down by the throat or the chest, and force them to submit.
Which is just terrifying for the dog.
Right. And the underlying assumption there is that dogs are constantly plotting to usurp you. Like they want to take over the household hierarchy.
It's like a bad soap opera.
It really is. And hey, if you're listening right now and you've tried this, do not feel a pit in your stomach. It was literally the only advice on television for a very long time.
Oh, for sure. It was everywhere, but it was based on terrible science. Modern scientists who study animal behavior in their natural environments, not in artificial labs, they've completely dismantled it.
Okay, so where did it even come from then?
Well, the original alpha theory came from observing wolves in captivity back in the 1940s. Researchers took a bunch of unrelated, highly stressed adult wolves, threw them into a small enclosure together, and just watched them fight for resources.
Wait, really? So it was essentially like a prison riot, not a natural family dynamic.
That is the absolute perfect way to describe it. A prison riot. In the wild, wolf packs actually operate as nuclear families.
Oh.
Yeah. There is a breeding pair, the parents and their offspring. Wild wolf biologists rarely even use the term alpha anymore.
That makes so much more sense.
Right. And more importantly, a wild parent wolf does not physically tackle their offspring to the ground to force submission. If you observe them carefully, the subordinate wolf actually offers the submissive role voluntarily.
Voluntarily?
Yes, as a sign of deference and respect.
Okay, that distinction changes everything. Because, if I respect someone, I might choose to bow to them. But if they physically tackle me to the pavement and force my head down...
You don't respect them.
No. I'm just terrified of them. I'm just waiting for my chance to escape.
Oh, exactly. And terror does not build a reliable behavioral response, right? It builds a time bomb.
So true.
And this brings us to how ethologists actually define dominance today, because it is not a lifelong personality trait.
Right, it's not like an identity.
No, dominance is simply a temporary relationship established to gain priority access to a specific resource. That's it.
Ah.
Your dog isn't jumping on the couch because they are calculating some geopolitical coup for control of your living room.
Right, they just want the softest spot to sleep.
Exactly.
I always think of the old alpha training like a terrible corporate boss. You know, the kind of manager who yells, micromanages every single small mistake, and uses the threat of being fired just to get compliant.
Oh, the worst kind of boss.
Right. And the employees might work out of fear, but turnover is massive and the environment is just toxic. Whereas modern leadership without force, which is what the science points us toward, is like being a really great mentor.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
You set incredibly clear boundaries, you reward good work, but you never have to scream or throw your weight around to get respect. Your calm presence alone just commands it.
That's a vital comparison. I mean, the psychological studies of the last 60 years regarding operant conditioning show us that undesirable behaviors continue because they are inadvertently reinforced.
So we're accidentally rewarding the bad stuff.
Basically, yeah. So to change the behavior, you just control the resources and you reward the choices you want. You really don't need to go to war with your dog.
Okay, but if they aren't fighting for dominance, what is the actual social structure? Because they are pack animals, right?
Yes, absolutely.
This takes us straight into pack position theory. And I have to say, the insights from the Think Like a Dog podcast on this absolutely blew my mind.
It's a fascinating framework.
It really is. They argue that dogs were essentially born with instinctual job descriptions, right?
Yes, these are natural roles that dogs instinctively fall into, regardless of their breed. And the framework breaks down into 3 primary positions.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, you have the front of the pack. This is the director. And contrary to what most people think, they aren't aggressive or loud. True front of the pack dogs are surprisingly aloof, calm, and collected.
Wait, really? So they aren't the ones losing their minds barking at the fence line?
Far from it. They conserve their energy and only step in when it's absolutely necessary. They don't micromanage.
Wow, okay.
Then you have the middle of the pack. These dogs are the glue. You can think of them as the camp counselors or like the diplomats of the dog world.
The life of the party.
Exactly. They are happy-go-lucky, highly social, and they spend their time mediating play and keeping the energy light.
I definitely know dogs like that. And the last one.
Finally, you have the back of the pack. This is the alarm system. These dogs are genetically hardwired to be highly sensitive to their environment.
Right.
They pick up on subtle sights, sounds, and emotional shifts so they can alert the rest of the pack to potential danger.
Okay, I need to stop you there and challenge this for a second, because that feels contradictory to what we actually see in the real world.
How so?
Well, if the back of the pack dogs are just the alarm system, like if their entire job description is just to stand in the back and say, hey, there's a weird noise over there.
Right.
Why are they the ones we constantly see with the most severe behavioral issues? You know, the lunging, the intense reactivity, the crippling separation anxiety.
That is the crucial paradox. And the answer lies entirely in the vacuum of the human environment.
The vacuum.
Yes. Think about it. When a highly sensitive, genetically hardwired back-of-the-pack dog is brought into a human household, they immediately look around for the front-of-the-pack leader.
Because someone has to be in charge.
Exactly. They need someone calm and collected to handle the threats they spot. But often, we humans aren't providing that clear, unbothered leadership.
We're either coddling them or we're just chaotic ourselves.
Right. And when that unbalanced, sensitive dog feels that no one is steering the ship, their instincts tell them the entire pack is in mortal danger.
Oh, man.
So out of sheer survival panic, they try to fill that vacant leadership role themselves.
But they're not built for it.
Not at all. Imagine taking the night watchman of a facility, someone whose only job is to spot a flashlight in the distance and hit a buzzer, and suddenly making them a 4-star general in the middle of a live combat zone.
Oh my gosh, they would completely fall apart.
They are going to be completely overwhelmed, reactionary, and impulsive. That is your reactive dog on the end of the leash.
That is, wow. They are horribly miscast in the play of your household. That completely reframes how we look at a bad dog.
They aren't acting out. They are experiencing biological panic.
Because they're doing a job they were never meant to do.
Precisely.
But okay, when that night watchman is totally stressed out trying to run the whole operation, how do they tell us before they completely snap? Because obviously they don't speak English.
They don't.
And if we are going to be the leaders, we have to learn to read their secret language. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yes, it does. The Aussie Pooch source provides a brilliant breakdown of this exact language, which behavioral scientists call calming signals.
Calming signals.
Right. These are subtle physical cues dogs use to self-soothe their own nervous systems or to communicate discomfort and, de-escalate tension before a situation turns violent.
Let's walk through some of these, because I guarantee most of us miss them entirely. I know I definitely have.
One of the most common and honestly most ignored is lip licking or tongue flicking.
Like just licking their lips.
Yeah, it's a very quick dart of the tongue over the nose. Now, unless you are holding a piece of steak, it doesn't mean they are hungry. It actually indicates mild stress or uncertainty.
Wow.
You see this constantly when strangers lean over a dog to pet them on top of the head.
Oh, I've seen that a million times. What else?
Then there is whale eye. This is when a dog turns their snout slightly away from whatever is bothering them, but they keep their eyes fixed on the threat.
So you see the whites of their eyes.
Exactly. It's a glaring indicator that the dog feels immense pressure and is desperately asking for space.
And if that pressure just continues.
Then you often see freezing. And this is an incredibly serious signal that humans routinely overlook as the dog just being calm.
Because they're holding still.
Right. But the body actually becomes completely rigid. The dog is internally assessing their safety. And if you push a dog while they are frozen, it is very often the immediate precursor to a bite.
That is so important to know. I noticed the Aussie Pooch article also highlighted shaking off, like they do when they get out of a bath. I see dogs do this all the time after they pass another dog on a narrow sidewalk.
Yeah, that shake-off is fascinating from a biological standpoint. It isn't just a quirk. It is a rapid autonomic nervous system reset.
A reset.
Yes. When a dog encounters a stressful or highly arousing stimulus, their body spikes with adrenaline. The physical act of shaking from nose to tail literally helps discharge that built-up muscular and emotional tension. It's a healthy coping mechanism.
Okay, but I want to go back to the yawn I mentioned at the very beginning of the deep dive. If my dog yawns in the middle of a training session or at the vet's office, aren't they just, bored?
Context is everything with calming signals. A slow, exaggerated yawn when the dog hasn't just woken up is a massive release of emotional tension.
So it's not boredom at all.
No, it draws more oxygen into the bloodstream and helps lower their heart rate. If you are in a crowded, noisy environment and your dog starts yawning repeatedly, they are basically screaming at you that they are overwhelmed.
And we just think they're sleepy.
Right. And this is the most critical point. When dogs use these subtle signals, the lip lick, the whale eye, the yawn, and we ignore them, they escalate to the only thing we finally listen to.
The growl.
Exactly, the growl.
And what is our immediate human instinct? We punish the growl, we yank the leash, we say no, bad dog. And again, if you're listening right now and realizing you've done this, just take a deep breath.
We've all done it.
We really have. It is entirely human nature to want to silence a scary, aggressive sounding noise.
It is human nature, but it is incredibly dangerous. A growl is simply communication. It's your dog saying, I tried whispering with a yawn, I tried asking nicely with a lip lick, and you didn't listen. Now I am shouting. I am terrified and uncomfortable.
Wow.
If you punish the growl, you do not remove the dog's underlying fear or discomfort. You only remove their warning system.
That's terrifying.
It is. You are teaching them that communicating is unsafe. And that is exactly how you create a dog that bites seemingly out of nowhere. You literally trained the warning out of them.
It's like ripping the check engine light out of your car's dashboard and then acting completely shocked when the engine eventually blows up on the highway.
That's a perfect analogy.
You didn't fix the engine, you just destroyed the indicator. So, okay, if we know all of this, we ditch the alpha myth, we understand the pack roles, we know how to spot a lip lick or a whale eye. How do we practically pull them out of that redlining state of mind?
This is where the methodology from the SMDOG training guide bridges the gap between theory and real-world application. Their core philosophy is that resolving reactivity isn't about teaching parlor tricks. It's about changing the dog's physiological state. And they do this through a framework called the yes work cycle.
Yes work. Okay, this is so different from what most people do, which is just waving a piece of cheese in front of the dog's face, hoping they sit. Break down the actual mechanism of yes work.
Right, because traditional training often relies on bribery, which doesn't actually change how the dog feels about a threat.
True.
The yes work cycle builds a neurological bridge in the dog's brain using 3 distinct phases: interruption, validation, and softness.
Okay, let's start with interruption.
So if your dog is fixated on a trigger, say a skateboarder across the street. They are locked into an autonomic prey or defense drive. Their survival instincts have completely taken over.
They're totally zoned in.
Yes. So you use a sharp, upbeat yes to verbally interrupt that fixation and break the trance.
Got it. You're snapping them out of the tunnel vision.
Exactly. Then comes validation. The moment they break that stare and look back at you, you mark that exact split-second decision with another yes and deliver a high-value reward.
Okay.
You are validating the choice to disengage from the threat and look to you, the leader. But the real magic happens in the third phase, softness.
This is the part that completely changes the game.
It really does. In the softness phase, you use the word yes to mark and reward the actual physical signs of the dog's nervous system relaxing.
Wait, you can reward relaxation?
Yes. If your dog is sitting there totally tense and they suddenly let out a deep sigh, you say yes and reward.
Wow.
If they unwrinkle their forehead, yes. If they shift their weight from a rigid stance onto a relaxed hip, yes.
That is brilliant.
By marking those micro movements, you trigger a dopamine release in their brain that overrides the stress response. You are literally paying them to exhale and let go of the tension.
You are shaping a calm state of mind from the inside out. But there's a catch.
There is always a catch.
To mark a relaxed hip or a sigh, the human holding the leash has to be incredibly observant and grounded themselves.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and frankly the most confronting part of this entire deep dive. The study from Frontiers in Veterinary Science.
Oh, this study is fascinating.
Because as much as we talk about the dog's genetics, this study proves that our own human personality traits might be the biggest variable of all.
Yeah, the Frontiers research is a stunning piece of data. They looked at the clinical outcomes of behavior modification in dogs with extreme fear and aggression, and they mapped those success rates directly against the psychological profiles of the owners.
This is a unique way to look at it.
It is, and it highlights a universal truth in animal behavior. The outcome is always a mix of genetics and environment, and the human is the architect of the environment.
I really want to get into the specific numbers here, because they are staggering. They used the big 5 personality traits to assess the humans. And they found that highly extroverted owners saw an 84% greater likelihood of their dogs showing decreased non-social fear.
Right.
Meaning fear of things like loud noises, traffic, or novel objects. Why is the extrovert getting such better results?
Well, the underlying mechanism there is a phenomenon called social buffering. Extroverts generally project a very upbeat, confident, and loose physical energy.
Okay.
When they encounter a loud noise, they don't tense up, they brush it off. And dogs are masters at reading our physiology.
Right, they feel everything.
Through social buffering, the dog essentially uses the extroverted human's calm heart rate and relaxed breathing to regulate their own panic. The human's confidence acts as a biological shield for the dog.
That is incredible. But then we look at the other end of the spectrum, and this is where I really have to push back a bit.
Go for it.
The study found that owners who scored highly in conscientiousness actually had 55% lower odds of seeing improvement in their dog's stranger-directed aggression. I have a really hard time accepting this.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. I mean, conscientious people are organized, they follow the rules, they do the homework. Are the researchers seriously suggesting that caring too much and being meticulous makes your dog more aggressive? Like, should we just be careless owners?
It sounds incredibly counterintuitive, I know, but it makes perfect sense when you view it through the lens of a reactive dog looking for a leader.
Okay, explain that.
Highly conscientious owners are planners. They anticipate problems. So when they see a stranger approaching, their brain instantly goes into threat management mode.
Yeah, you do this.
They tighten their grip on the leash, their breathing becomes shallow, and their shoulders tense up.
They're completely bracing for impact.
Exactly. And remember, the dog feels that micro tension through the leash. They smell the subtle spike in the owner's cortisol. The sensitive back of the pack dog reads that physiological shift and thinks, my human is terrified of that stranger. The leader is scared. I have to step up and defend us.
Wow.
The human's meticulous overmanagement actually signals to the dog that the environment is incredibly dangerous.
That is mind-blowing. So our internal state literally dictates their external behavior.
100%.
If you are tense, anxious, and micromanaging every interaction, you're basically proving to the dog that you are not capable of keeping the pack safe.
Right.
But if you step into the role of the calm, unbothered front of the pack leader, you create a psychological safety net. You prove to the dog, through your own emotional regulation, that you have the situation handled.
And they can finally clock out of that night watchman job.
That is the essence of modern behavioral science, isn't it? You just cannot fake calm energy to an animal that relies on reading heart rates and spatial pressure to survive.
No, you can't. They know the absolute truth of how you feel.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening journey today. Let's pull all of this together for the listener.
Yeah, let's recap.
If you were struggling with a reactive, anxious dog, the science is super clear. Throw the alpha rolls and the intimidation tactics in the garbage. They only create a ticking time bomb.
Absolutely.
True transformation happens when you step up as a calm, grounded leader. It requires learning their secret language, spotting the lip licks, the whale eyes, and the freezes, and protecting them before they ever feel the need to growl.
Don't punish the growl.
Right. And practically, it means using tools like the yes work cycle to actively build a neurological bridge to a relaxed state of mind, rewarding the sigh instead of just the sit.
It is a profound shift from trying to control a dog's body to actively helping them regulate their mind. It's a lifestyle built on fair leadership and really profound observation.
We start out by saying a dog isn't a computer you can just program. They're a deeply sensitive mirror reflecting the environment we create for them. Which, leaves us with a pretty intense realization about the nature of this entire relationship.
It really does. And I think this is the perfect thought to leave everyone with today.
Let's hear it.
If our dogs are biologically hardwired to mirror our energy, and if our own deep-seated personality traits, our hidden anxieties and our tendency to micromanage directly dictate whether they can overcome their own fear.
Yeah.
Is dog training really about training the dog at all? Or is it actually a masterclass in training ourselves to become more grounded